This week on Women Who Rise, I'm joined by speaker, community leader, and women's empowerment advocate, Katina Collins. We're talking about resilience, purpose, and what it really takes to rise through life's hardest seasons and step into your next chapter. If you've ever felt called to more, but weren't sure how to get there, this conversation is for you. Don't miss this powerful episode. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Women Who Rise. I'm your host, Heather Mansy. Today, I'm joined by Pastor Katina Collins, a Portland-based speaker, community leader, and women's empowerment advocate. She's known for her work in Thy Kingdom Come International Church and the I Refer Her PDX movement. Through conferences, mentorship, and public speaking, she creates spaces that encourage resilience, personal growth, and meaningful connection among women from all walks of life. Her message blends purpose, perseverance, and practical transformation, inspiring others to rise through adversity and step fully into their potential. Whether on stage, in community initiatives, or through collaborative leadership, Katina is passionate about helping people discover strength, clarity, and forward momentum. We're honored to welcome her today for a conversation about growth, resilience, and the journey of becoming. Thank you so much for being with us, Katina.
Thank you, Heather. I am just honored to be here with you today and the entire Women Who Rise community.
Thank you. And we are so excited to have you. You know, I've had the pleasure of both attending one of your events and being able to speak on stage at that event. And what I can say is that without fail, that audience was absolutely enraptured by the message, by the speakers, by everything that you delivered that day. It was really clear that it wasn't just a space for women to be able to learn or obtain inspiration. It was really a feeling of community, of belonging, of really passionately wanting to help one another. I can say without fail, I've almost never seen a room that impassioned, that high energy, that excited, and with their hearts just so open, tearing up and just, laughing out loud and just being really extraordinarily inspired. How how do you think that you were able, because it is you, and I really do think it is you and the movement that you created through the I Refer Her PDX conference, how do you think that you're able to create this kind of a world and space that looks like that around you?
You know, my center ultimately is my faith, right? And my belief in God and the love that I was given and making personal connection. I think the one thing that we do moving through life is we say hello, we say good morning, we say how are you, but we keep moving and we don't really stop to connect. And the thing that I have found is you've got to have a love connection with whomever you come in contact with, because there's something I've recognized that either I can glean from that person or that I can share with that person. So being able to create a space that I have thrived in, right, is what I wanted to do for these women. I wanted women to be seen. I wanted them to feel heard, and I wanted them to be given skills and opportunities and then even see people who have been in spaces that they've been in so that they can realize that I can rise too, which is why
Yeah.
your movement with the Women Rise connects so with my heart.
I love that. And, what a great segue, because you mentioned something. You mentioned that there were people coming from all walks of life. And,
Mhm.
I discussed it in your bio as well. But there were people, and there are people and movements, in fact, that have sprang off of your
Mhm.
teaching, I would think. And maybe you can let me know how that started. But there is a, anti-recidivism movement that is growing out of the incarcerated population that
Mhm.
basically had several incredible voices of success stories
Yeah.
in that room that were saying,
Yes.
hey, we're a part of this group and we want
Yeah.
to speak out for and inspire and help and lift people that have
Yes.
been on the inside of our correction system and can be better for it. There's like this
Mhm.
conversation, oh, okay, but and you can go
Mhm.
on, but how about and be
Yes.
better for it? And I thought that that
Yes.
was something I was absolutely stunned as that came across. And I absolutely love that message. Can you talk a little bit
Yeah.
about
Mhm.
how or in what way that sort of a sub community sprang up under you and what it means to you to be again a space for that conversation as well?
Yes, there are a number of additional, communities that have really kind of sprung up. I think one of the things that, again, in the work that I do in the community, is when I say I want women to have a voice and to be seen, it really is in all of those spaces. I am one that I've been homeless. Right. And so I've had a father who was on drugs. And so I've been a
Mhm.
child who was entwined with abuse and having to deal with parent on drugs, right? And so being able to recognize that there's an entire community that has had to live that and is still living that. And I remember the one thing that I wished I grew up in the church, and I wish someone would have come to me and said, how are you doing? Right? What would
Mhm.
you like to say as a young person that's living in this space, right? And so when you think about all the different spaces that people have been, so whether they've been on drugs, whether they've been incarcerated, whether they have been coming from domestic violence, right? Whatever that space has been for them, been a caregiver, right? Raised to be a caregiver, sometimes enabled to be a caregiver, right? And not told they can do anything else. And so when you think about that, I really wanted these folks that I have come in contact with that have been in these spaces to be able to share how they have become resilient. That yes, they were incarcerated. Yes, they were in gangs. Yes, they may not have been the ones doing the drugs, but they were selling the drugs, right? So how do you
Mhm.
then
Yeah.
reach back and stop a young woman from going down the
Mhm.
same road that you traveled? How do you pull her up? How do you share your authentic self with her to say that's not really what you want to do? How do you tell the young woman who is being influenced by a loved one, a family member, to go prostitute? Like how do you go back? And what I have found with the I refer her is it has to take a time to just stop and say, I need to hear your voice. Others need to hear your voice.
Mhm.
And I need you to be honest and tell us how you came out of that. Where did you have the epiphany, or did the light come on to say, you need to help somebody else and you don't have to stay in this? I think it was a young woman who now is a social worker, who was one of our speakers, who had a long stint in prison. Her mother passed away while she was in prison. And what she said is
Um,
she started going to classes while she was incarcerated. And she realized that when she came out, she had so much knowledge that then she needed to do an internship so she could then get the experience. And once she did that, her life changed forever. And now she's giving back, has a
wow.
family, thriving, and in spaces like I refer her, where her impact was so great. And so I think really it is that just giving people an opportunity to know that they're important to be heard.
I love that. And boy, so much information that you gave there and so much wisdom to kind of unpack. Basically, how are you doing? It speaks about
Mhm,
the experience of an individual that at any
mhm,
age, that you can matter. And this idea that you are a pastor in the way that you had wanted and maybe even
mhm,
needed, I would imagine,
mhm.
your pastor
Yes.
at the time to be one that's something else you said here. You said one who shares their authentic self.
Mhm,
You're
mhm,
talking about how you mentor another person. And one of the
mhm,
critical aspects about true mentorship is that vulnerability, that sharing of
yeah,
your authentic self that then allows you to create a genuine human connection. You called
mhm,
it something that I adore, which is a love connection. And I don't believe that I've heard that happen heard
mm,
someone say that before, but this idea of a love connection that is
mhm,
built between you and another person, that
mhm,
mutual admiration, appreciation, or just showing of human care at a high
yeah,
level and showing your authentic self then allows
mhm,
you to mentor, to teach, to
mm,
inspire another person, because what you're alluding to and pointing to, and I think is so critical for our audience, is that you really can't stop someone from making a bad decision or teach them something if they can't see themselves in you at all. It's
yes.
very, very hard if they cannot have any sort of connection,
Mhm,
if they feel that they're so much a world away from who you
right.
are. There's how do they get there? And they're just looking at
Mm,
you as an impossible reality or an impossible goal. And I really love the fact as well that I think, Katina, I can say with really good confidence that you and I did not,
mhm,
pop out fully formed
right.
into who people see these
Mm,
put together women, on a camera today.
no,
We just didn't.
no.
We just didn't. You discussed many of the things that you came through, and I've been transparent as well in past episodes to say, look, I grew up in a trailer on food stamps, single mom. She had the good sense to leave my dad, who was a raging alcoholic at the time, later recovered, and we were able to recover some relationship, and he became a much better granddad than a dad. But that was all very tough. And we really didn't know where dinner was coming from an awful lot of the time during those years. And so it creates a lot of resilience, but also can create a lot of upset. And you can feel a lack of belonging in the world around you. So I think the fact that you are being able to give this, and it's really kind of the next question I want to ask you, which is look, you're really brave. And we see this fully formed, really beautiful, like well spoken woman. How did you get there? How did you get here from there? W- In that, where did you find that sense of inner belonging or deservingness or something that allowed you to go forward through, a very hard past that was certainly emotionally difficult, and you may not have felt like you belong?
Oftentimes didn't feel like I belonged. Actually, one of the things that I remembered, I don't often tell it. I'm currently writing my book, Heather, and so it'd be in there. But I didn't always
I'm
have
excited.
even a name. Because my family came to Oregon under the Witness Protection Program. So
Okay.
I was often hidden. And so coming to a place and learning that it's okay to be seen, it's okay to use your voice, right? There were often times when I leaned into book reading, I leaned into writing, I leaned in or writing stories, right? I leaned into that because that is where I could, though it was a make believe what I was writing, it was mine, right? It wasn't something that I had to hide from it or somebody gave me. It was something that I was creating. And so learning how from that life coming, through that life, moving through because I've always been my I'm a tall woman. I'm a very stout woman. But sometimes in society, that's always not always received, right? And so I
Mhm.
had to learn how to embrace who I was, who God created me to be. I had to learn how to embrace that I am beautiful. I had to learn how to embrace it. I had to learn that even the experiences that I was going through, coming through high school into going right to then working into the county, then the VA. I had to learn in those spaces that I'm always in class. I'm always learning
Mhm.
something, and that there was something that I had that I was able to share. And so I always wondered why I was asked to come to the forefront. There was something in me I didn't recognize at a younger age, but I was always asked to come to the forefront to lead, whether it was directing the youth choir to learning leadership skills as the usher board president for the youth department. And I was never under people my own age. I always found myself
Mm.
sitting with quietly the older women. The older women took me under their wing. And so it was being with them, even coming into adulthood, that I begin to, as I'm quietly listening, quietly gleaning from their experiences, where they were sharing how they navigated school, how they navigated motherhood, how they navigated community, some of them navigating health issues. I
Yeah.
sat and listened, and I would take pieces and I would apply them to my life. And then as I began to continue working with them, they would begin to ask my opinion. What are your thoughts? What are people your age considering? Right. And so it was in those spaces that I began to learn that everyone at every age is important, that they thought enough to ask me. And I'm a young person sitting in this space. And so I began to learn very quickly that my voice mattered. And then not only would they ask, they wouldn't take every suggestion and apply it, but I started seeing little things. It's like, oh, they heard me. Right. And I would start to see that show up as they were producing in the spaces that we were working in. So that's how I really started kind of recognizing that I do have something to say.
I love that, and, it's amazing because basically you went from, "I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it is
Mm-hmm.
about me, but I know that I
Mm-hmm.
have something." And
Mm-hmm.
before I could ask the question really, you had kind of evolved through time and what you had later figured out to be, in fact, leadership,
Yeah.
and that you had this leadership. I am curious,
Mm-hmm.
was your path toward leadership something that you came naturally to over time? Or were there some leaders that you
Mhm.
kind of zeroed in on or were able, even not at the time to notice, but that over time, maybe you can look back and say, I think I learned something about leadership from this person. And who were those
Yes.
people for you?
Yes. So actually there are several. As I'm sitting here and you were asking that question, one of them was Crystal Robinson. Crystal Robinson was a childhood actually mentor. She was the sister of my best friend who actually went to college. The first person I knew besides my sister, they were best friends that went to college. And she actually gave me my first job out of high school working with the county. And so that was my very first. And she really taught me discipline. How to come to work. How to show up in these spaces. Administratively, she really honed in on a skill that I have, and so Crystal was absolutely phenomenal to me. Following Crystal, the other person that I think of, and not all women, right, but majority of them were women. The other person I think of is Noelle Webb. Noelle Webb had here in Oregon, she had a temporary agency a Black woman who also built, if you're going up 405, and if you come under an overpass, there's the Webb building that sits just above the overpass. And Noelle was the first woman I knew that. I was with her from the time she started construction on this building. So I began to learn business. I began to learn from her, how to place people in positions, how to reach out, right, and make and have collaboration, how to partner with
Yeah.
individuals. It was Noel Webb's agency that actually connected me with the VA. And so there's one, and then the other person, and there's been so many along the way. Charlotte Branson, who I had the privilege of serving for several years as her administrator for Oregon First Jurisdiction Women's Department. And I learned so much from her. And I think a few of the things that really stand out for me is how to take care of the ones who take care of you. One of the
Mm.
things that Charlotte Brandon did in her leadership skill was she made you feel valued. She made you feel important, and she wouldn't do it in the open and obvious before people, but she would put something in your hand, or she would give you a thank you note or give something. And she always said, you always thank the people who are serving with you because they don't have to. Right. So that was one of the leadership things that I've taken from her. And that's why that love connection is so important. But the last person that I'm connected with right now is my senior pastor, Valina Tyler. And she really is the epitome. You mentioned earlier, I the pastor that I had growing up, great man of God, married me, blessed my first child, but he was older, right? And they had some very strong traditions about women that I don't hold. And so having Pastor Valina Tyler she's a spiritual mom to me. She is an amazing teacher, but the biggest thing for me is her example. I watch her. I listen. I sit in meetings. I glean so much from her, and it is her that I think has taken all the things that I have acquired along the way, and she is now helping to kind of shape, I believe, who I am now, because she pushes me. She encourages me. She is the one that lets me know, no, no, it is time for you to launch out and do something greater. And so those are just a few of the women. There are so many more, but those specifically had major impact. And my mom and my mission work. Dolores
Yeah.
Clark is the other person that for all the things that we went through in childhood, right? She was still an amazing mother, and my work ethic. And what's funny, Heather, is as I watched my career in the VA, uh, I, I, I think about my mom because the same path, I've gone further than her, but the path that I've been on in customer service, it's my mom. So, yeah.
Oh, I love that. And so much to be gained there
Hmm.
where you can see you really had, 4 or 5 key mentors in
Hmm.
your life, and I almost sense could have spoken of more. And one thing I'm getting from that is that you essentially have, an abundance mindset, which is to say that
Yeah.
you are finding that silver lining. You're finding the love and the joy and the appreciation for the things that have come your way that are positive
Hmm.
and the people that have come your way that have inspired you. Because if you ask that
Hmm.
question to a lot of people, you might only get, a couple of people's names, and it
Hmm.
may not come particularly easily. It is that
Hmm.
way of thinking. And one of the
Hmm.
things that you mentioned a few minutes ago was to say, I am beautiful, to learn and to figure out that I am beautiful. And
Hmm.
you had mentioned, being taller and things like that.
Hmm.
But yet you can have people that are, physically quite this
Hmm.
ideal or whatever of beautiful, who could never necessarily speak those words the way that you did,
Mm,
and with obvious conviction and like a deep knowledge or deep
mhm,
understanding. And it
yeah,
really informs me with the women that were in your life and that we're able to teach
mhm,
you, because what I get from I am beautiful in the way you
mhm,
inflected it is really, it's an inner knowing of value.
yeah,
It's an inner
yes,
understanding of actual, goodness and value, and the things that you
mhm,
value that you have gotten other people from other people, and that you've learned from other people, and that you learn from yourself that you have,
mhm,
which is, isn't that the best beauty? Is this incredible intrinsic value? And in fact,
mhm,
wouldn't it be nice if we all knew what our intrinsic value was?
yes.
I wanted to ask you on a pivot here if you can share a season or a time that tested your resilience, and whether recently or far back, and what that
Mhm.
experience ultimately taught you about strength, surrender, and rising forward rather than simply pushing through.
Yeah. Yeah, I think immediately about the time. I think I was with the VA probably maybe 7 or 8 years, and with my work at that time, I was a patient advocate. I love my veterans. My dad was a veteran, and so when you mentioned earlier, even able to establish a relationship later with yours, I was able to as well, right? Later in life, before my dad passed away. But I learned so much about my dad by working with the VA. So while I
Yeah.
was working with the VA and really advocating for a particular veteran that really felt as though um, he was not being treated appropriately. And I'm very passionate, right? So, again, my love connections, and so when working with this veteran, I always had to work with the leadership of the facility I worked with, and I'll never forget this. The leadership spoke to my supervisor and said I was sounding as though I was an angry Black woman. So he took my passion for and my advocacy for this veteran, and he twisted that for his own narrative. And so what happened in that, thank God that my supervisor knew me. However, it was an opportunity for me to still learn some things from that. Now, I will tell you, it made
Mhm.
me and I became angry. I became very
Yeah.
despondent because in my mind, you've hired me. You actually took me from my previous position because you saw my skill and my ability, and you gave me this position to do what I'm doing. But when it now is challenging your decision,
Mm.
now I'm an angry Black woman. So I it,
Wow.
it it took me to a place, Heather, where I was like, oh, you want me to be an angry Black woman? Imma go straight angry Black woman, and it changed kind of my mentality and how I moved through the facility for several weeks. I mean, I went whole Angela Davis on them. And so my husband said to me, it was about the second week, and I mean, I wasn't the kind Katina. I was, I was angry. And so my husband said, "Okay, it's been 2 weeks now. You've got that out of your system." He said, so now you got to come back and you've got to recognize that, do you want them to define who you are, or do you want to really show them who you are? And so my supervisor,
Mm.
as we begin to talk about it, what could we take away from that? And it was really, how do I then position myself in these spaces to be heard, still maintain my passion, um, but I had to learn how to dial myself down. So
Yeah.
in navigating through, that's what she asked me, you got to dial yourself down. So in that, I became like I said, very despondent, and I almost quit. I didn't want to work for them anymore. 25 years later, I'm
Mhm.
still there, but I learned. I had to really kind of sit with, I had to pray. I had to really pause and ask the Lord, what am I supposed to be doing? Because that situation, it was somewhere where someone really was trying to define who I was, and that's not who I was. And so I had to learn resilience in there. I had to learn how to still know that I can still go into these spaces, but that I had to then shift or pivot, if you will, how I began to present the information. And so now what I do is I teach people, I teach all those that I work with. You don't necessarily have to, um, uh, your passion doesn't have to come across aggressive, but what you do have to
Mhm.
have is chapter and verse, come with policy, come with the information, right? Because evidence will
So
take
good.
care of speaking for you and you don't have to say anything. And so I really did learn some resilience in that. I learned how to still show up. And can I tell you, I chuckle now. That very same leader that said that about me, we are both now at a higher level within the VA organization, and we work together. And thank goodness I didn't burn a bridge, right? I didn't burn
Yeah.
the bridge down, right? Because now we're able to work together, and I don't even know if he even remembers all those things, right? He may have had some thoughts when he came over to where we are, but the reality is we are still great colleagues. And so that's just some of the resilience and the strength that I gained from that experience
Yeah.
that I now can help other people. Don't walk away from the opportunity. What can you learn from this experience, right? And then how can you apply that to help you?
This is so good. Because what you've described is something that I think every one of us is going to
Mhm,
encounter at some point
mhm.
in any career, no matter what field you're in, which is
Yeah,
that it's not always easy. There are going to be times people
yeah.
don't hear you, don't understand you, don't
Mm,
quite take you for who you want to show up as. And where, in
yeah,
fact, you have to do a self check and go, am I really showing up in the way that I desire? And what does that look
yeah,
like? And is it, in fact, a
yeah.
little different? Or yes, if I am, then there is the opportunity to communicate to the other person. And yes, you can
Mhm.
do so in strength and power. And by the way, sometimes strength and power is quiet. It is not
Yes.
loud, and it can be the greatest strength. And I love that
Mhm,
you were able to gain all of that
mhm.
because it's a tremendous amount of a personal growth that
Yeah.
happened in that moment, and yet then it gave you another couple decades of being able to
Mhm.
be in the career that you chose and
Yes.
in the field where you fit and then in
Mhm.
fact smooth over and create greater opportunity to work with people in the future.
Yeah.
Because yes, it's
Yep.
doesn't it come down to a little bit of maturity where
Yes.
what is wisdom and what is maturity if not a little bit of a
Mhm.
smoothening of who we are. And that doesn't mean to be quiet, it doesn't mean to have an opinion. I absolutely love what you said about chapter and verse, which is that know your stuff, come forward,
Yes.
let the facts speak for you. You
Mhm.
don't have to be so personally out there in order to be correct or to command attention or
Mhm.
command the room or even
Mhm.
win an argument if in
Right.
fact you have supporting evidence that can help
Mhm.
you. So many good things there. Who has most deeply shaped the way that you lead today? I know you mentioned a lot about your leading pastor, but
Mhm.
you know, what I witnessed last fall at your
Mhm.
function was you yourself as doing a lot of
Mhm.
leadership. And so I almost wonder that this isn't a conversation that's kind of better about you, which is
Mhm.
what elements of yourself are you pulling from and emphasizing? I know that you said you're also writing a book.
Mhm.
What elements of yourself in terms of leadership or exposition are you looking to grow right now and that is inspiring or leading your next charge?
Yes. So I've learned early on that teaching is one of my gifts. And so, teaching, and then of course, acting. is also one of those. But really, where the acting comes from is learning the poise, and and having the grace to kind of move, people move through spaces, the gift of administration, organization, and the leadership are all skills that I have developed over the years, and I'm able to utilize. And when you think about administration is more than just secretarial work. It's actually the ability to pull people together, right? Organizing, and pulling these things together where you are then producing something that is greater than you. And all of these skills and gifts that I have gained over the years, and even the challenges that have helped sharpen, right, these particular skills are what I use. And so, as we, think about the I refer her, really it is taking all of those things. I'm constantly taking trainings, whether it is, training in business, training in leadership, training in, the different things. I'm constantly trying to get a new certification in something, so that I can be better at what I do, right? So I can help other people, because that really is my ultimate goal. I mean, I want to be able to be empty when I leave here. I want to be able to give all that I have on the inside of me to somebody else, right? And everything that I do, everything that my husband and I and my daughter we do is to help other people. And so even with the I refer her, that ultimately is what that is. It is that I have a passion for the women, and I want them to have the same skills. So whether it's my skill for cooking, whatever it is, I recognize that everybody can't do it, right? I'm learning everybody can't be a good housekeeper, but we can show you how, right? We can teach you. And so whatever I have, whatever skill I have, whatever skill I've worked on, right? Cooking is one of those things that I had to work on so I could be better at it. And so if you like what I do, let me show you, right? I don't want to, I'm one of those, I'm going to teach you how to fish so that you'll be able to
Yes,
eat
exactly.
forever. Right. And
Yeah.
so that really is how I move. And so all of those abilities is what I use. And as we're thinking about, the next phase and step for I refer her, it really is that next piece where I was listening to one of your, and I won't be able to say her name right, but I was listening to one of your podcasts talking about the financial wealth and well-being,
Yeah.
and that's one of our focuses this year is really to provide financial literacy. So I'm partnering with other people who are experts in their field. That's part of that administration. I partner with, I seek out those women, so that this year's focus is financial literacy, estate planning. I'm tired of seeing GoFundMe's for people who have died and they don't have
Yeah.
anything prepared.
Yeah.
Right. And so that is one of our
Yes.
focuses this
Yeah.
year in the different workshops and things, is to really look at all of kind of what the finances kind of uh, circulate around, and then still having the resilience award banquet, right? And that's one of the things that we're doing this year. And and Heather, I also discovered
Fantastic.
last year young women, that there was a group of young
Yeah.
women that came between the ages of 12 and 18. And one of the things that one of them said, just so inspiring, and she came back on Sunday to dance. She came up after the Resilience Award and she said, "Thank you for allowing me to come to this." She said, "I got to see on the
Mhm.
stage what I'm going to look like after I come through the things I'm going through right now." And
That's
so
incredible.
it is. And so
Yeah. That
we're also
inspiration.
looking at it is. So that's part of the other piece that we're doing this year, is pulling in those young women so that they can be a part of this. They can be in some of these settings. And then for the resilience award, they'll be serving, right, in that, so they can be around those great women.
Fantastic. I love it.
Mhm,
Well, and that's the thing too, is so much of what you do is true altruism in the sense that
mhm,
you are there to provide what
mhm,
people otherwise could not and would not have been
mhm,
able to seek for
mhm,
themselves, and simply maybe don't have the vision, don't have the
mhm,
access. I think you really elevated the concept of administration, I think, for our audience here, which is that there's a whole subsection of our planet that is
mhm,
working on putting the puzzle together for everyone
mhm,
else. And we
mhm.
don't care. We don't elevate. We're not talking
Right.
about it. We're not thanking them. When I
Mhm,
think about teachers and things like that, that's another
mhm,
segment. My mother was a teacher. I hold
mhm,
a teaching certification. You are an amazing teacher. There is this whole gratitude that I have for teaching, and I think we need to
mhm.
add administration to that, because there are the nuts and bolts, and it's these really vast numbers of people, but not
Mhm.
everyone is great at it, and it can take
Right.
decades to really get to a mastery of that skill. And it's so important, because things do not get administered without
Mm,
great leadership in that realm. But
that's
one of the
right.
things that you said that really just absolutely caught my breath was, I want to be empty when I leave
Mhm,
here. And I think that just
mhm.
speaks absolute volumes about your grace as a human being. And this idea, we always say you can't take it with you, and people are coveting so much, and they're, garnering
Yes.
so much wealth or whatever they're doing. But also, what about your personal energy? Who
Mhm,
are you saving it all up
mhm,
for? Why not just be bold, be brave, and
mm,
go do the thing that you're passionate about? Chances are you're going to make a big difference in someone else's life. And I think that there's
yeah.
so much, what we understand about people is there's that complacency, that fear. We often say, and you and I spoke very briefly before we got on camera about this idea that, look, resistance and fear doesn't show up in your
Mhm.
mind when you're sitting on a sofa eating potato chips, right?
Right,
It's that your mind
right.
is going to be totally okay with that. It's going to tell you to
Mhm,
keep doing that.
exactly.
But the fear and resistance and the lack of belonging comes up when you stick
Mhm.
your arm out there, and you go like,
Yeah,
I'm going to go volunteer, or I'm going to go create a new company or whatever. And that is why
yes.
I think voices like yours are so extraordinarily important for women who rise, because
Yeah.
if we're going to rise, we've got to be able
Mhm.
to see ourselves in others. We've got to be on the
Yes.
coattails of another person. We've got to
Mhm.
imagine that we can be good enough to at least just put that finger out there and just try,
Yeah.
one digit at a time, to go into something that looks a little scary, into a
Mhm.
dream or a hope or a whatever that
Yes.
we have going
Yeah,
on. But when you say, I want to be empty when I
yeah,
leave this life, I
yeah.
think that just shoves all the fear away. What fear can be
Mhm.
present when you are
Yeah.
really just there to exercise all of your talents, all of
Mhm.
your abilities, and all that you
Mhm.
are in the service of the humankind around you,
Yeah.
to the best of the passion that you know yourself to have in the
Mhm.
moment, and to the best of the skills you know
Yeah.
yourself to have in the moment. Boy, doesn't that just take the pressure of all that fear away?
Yes. It
Because it
does.
really isn't about you anymore. It's about
Mm-mm.
being in an act of service. I think that
That's
is the
right.
true gift that you
That's
must
right.
also have. And it's not to say you're not scared as well. When you have to go speak in front of an audience, I've seen you come off stage and go, "Whoo,"
Woo! Yes.
we all do it. And I had the pleasure to speak at one of your events. But before our time here ends, I wanna touch on two other things, and
Mhm.
I'm glad I made you laugh, because your personality just fills me with joy just being around you. And I said this to you that,
Thank
when we
you.
first met, it was like I just
Mhm.
absolutely loved being around you, because I feel like true joy is how you
Yeah.
just, that's what you exude. And like you say, make that love connection with people. I think it's just
Yes.
very natural
Yeah.
to who you are. But so I also know two things. So you're up to,
Uh-huh,
let's make sure the audience knows where
uh-huh.
they can find you for your upcoming, what month or whatever, and when your
Okay,
upcoming event this year, so that they can kind of earmark it and learn a little bit
okay.
more. Because boy, they should show up to that if they can, or Zoom in, or whatever. And then the other thing is, I know you're working on your book. Do you have a
Yes.
completion date, and where, or what email, or sorry, what website could they possibly stay connected to you so that they can purchase that when it comes out?
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. So I refer her. We actually will be launching the nominations April 1st. So, the awesome thing about the I refer her Resilience Award banquet is, and this and the conference in of itself. Because I don't do this, it's not to make money. This is solely a community. This is missions, and so people purchase tickets to come. I seek out donors to help me facilitate, and that's all that it is, right? That's what we do. And so April 1st, anyone can nominate a woman. That they believe is resilient, and so last year we highlighted teachers and caregivers and women again that have come from drug addiction and incarceration and really have become resilient, right? So it can be any woman. There'll be some new criteria this year, so you can go to I refer her pdx.org, and there will be information on the website. The website, you will also be able to purchase tickets to come again to the banquet and to the conference. The conference will be the third weekend of October, so October 16th, 17th, 26th, and the location will be on there as well. And again, you'll be able just to look for everything you need. I refer her. Different businesses that we are referring are also on that page. My book, it should be ready and available at the conference. And so that is, we're so
Wonderful.
excited about that. And so you'll also see that posted on the I Refer Her website. So, women that have different businesses, and if you know someone that you would like us to refer, right, at any given time, send an email to I Refer Her PDX. .org, and it's actually administration admin. I refer her pdx.org, and we will go check out their business or their new book, and we'll share that with the community. So thank you, Heather, and we were so glad that you were with us
Wonderful.
last year. Your team, right? Your team was absolutely amazing, and I think your conversation is one of the ones that gets continued talked about, right, in settings that we sit in. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much as well. Talking about mentorship, that was a wonderful thing to be able to do. I want to thank you for being here with us today. I want to thank you for the incredible grace, kindness, and altruistic, way that you simply are. Thank you for being who you are for the world around you. I have seen hundreds of women who are absolutely inspired in your presence and lifted up because they know you and because they have access to you and the services and community and all of it that you have managed to create in your world, in your corner of this world. And I want to
Mhm.
thank you for that, because we need more people like you. We need people like you to get brave and step up and keep doing what
Mhm.
you're doing and just grow. And I really look forward to the book as well. And I want to thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for your time today. We appreciate you on Women Who Rise. Today, Katina taught us several things I really wanted to share. Number one, the love connection. Katina talked about making a genuine love connection with people in a way that allows them to understand the value that you see in them. And when you can make that, human connection with them, you would be able to inspire them, mentor them, whatever that is. And that is at the core of everything she does in all of her ministry, in addition to the ways in which through her conference and other things, she helps others. Second, she talked about sharing your authentic self, understanding that it's very difficult to mentor or give wisdom to another person, to give them that warning to say, hey, don't do this, don't do that. If you cannot share in your own authentic self, whatever it was that you would like to, that you have learned in your own life that they can benefit from. If you're not showing your authenticity, if you're just there showing your picture perfect life, it's going to be very difficult for them to understand what could possibly be different in themselves and why they should listen to your authority, having maybe been there. And so showing people or discussing with them or being willing to talk about your authentic self, talk about your history, talk about the hard times or the failures maybe you faced at the risk of, yes, looking not that great, then you can actually teach to them. Another thing she mentioned is that leadership can exist in so many ways. One way in which Katina dealt with leadership is that she had challenging times in her career, one in particular, and she felt that this was something that was very difficult, very challenging to her. And she wanted to quit. She wanted to change, do something different. And she realized someone was reflecting something on her that she needed to maybe learn from. She needed to maybe pivot. She needed to stay cool headed in the moment. She needed to give it time. And she also needed reflection. She wanted to see what could I have possibly done different. And she realized that she could use facts and information and lead in a different way and a different style, and not only with kind of brute force of communication. And she actually created a more evolved person. And so leadership can be quiet, leadership can be loud. It really depends. And being able to learn in the moment and evolve doesn't mean you're giving up yourself. It means that you are, in fact, growing and becoming wiser. And then, by the way, she's been able to benefit from another 20 plus years in that career that she never would have had if she could not step back, exercise some self-control, learn what could be different, and pivot in the moment. And then finally, she talked about something. She said, I am, in fact, beautiful. And she talked about her exterior physical self did not always occur as, a magazine version of beauty. And she was trying to wrap her head around that as a younger person. And through gaining value, in fact, intrinsic value inside, she realized also that in an exterior fashion, she was, in fact, beautiful, that she was beautiful as a whole person. And I think this speaks and can speak to any and all of us at any given point of time, which is that confidence and a genuine belief in yourself and a genuine vision of yourself that is positive takes time. It doesn't have to take forever. Sometimes it's a realization in a moment, but it does. It takes time. And some of that can be built through, while you're waiting, that interior self, that building value, building knowledge, building leadership, acquiring a version of yourself you can be proud of. And then, yes, that exterior beauty can come. And with it, an even greater level of self-love and appreciation. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Visit our website to find our episode guide and worksheet that will help you use these tips to take action in your own life. Please also like and subscribe and join us everywhere podcasts are streamed. We can't wait to bring you more incredible content every week so that you can rise in your own lives and careers. Again, thank you so much. Heather Mansy, signing off.